internet. Joy here, and as is sort of becoming common, this video is inspired by events that have happened to me recently. So, I want to talk about dating as a trans person because it is one of the hardest things to socially navigate. I mean, dating is a pretty thorny topic anyway, but we as trans people have needs, socially, and it's kind of easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we're so different from everybody's expectations that we're somehow unlovable or unwanted because of a lack of general acceptance of trans people in society. So, I want to talk about all of the options available to us and what that means, how we feel, how we navigate, or how I do anyway as a trans person. So, dating, we are left with a few options, none of which are particularly ideal. Dating in the 21st century is somewhat like wading through uncharted territory for a lot of people, but this video is just going to focus solely on what it means to be trans and dating. So, option 1. Dating someone who already knows the big ol' secret. Usually this will be someone from a friend group or a work colleague or someone who has, already been introduced to us through those groups, someone who already knows us as individuals and will respect our personality, because, you're not going to hang out with somebody who doesn't respect you for who you are and what you are and everything like that, right? Or at least, if you do, you shouldn't, because that's a toxic place to be. This particular option carries all of the baggage of dating someone from a friend group or an acquaintance that would happen with anybody. However, it is relatively less risky, but it still could lead to groups dissolving, like social groups, if that relationship fails. Also, it's difficult to find someone who is the same level of interested as you within those certain groups. Option 2. Dating online. Now, online profiles give us the option to choose to reveal or conceal that information about us about being trans. Now, personally, I think it's better to just be upfront and mention it on your online profile because it weeds out those people who aren't interested and it saves the awkward conversation that happens later, but I'll get to that in a bit. The drawback from that, of course, is that you might end up attracting people who would solely fetishize you as a trans person or use someone who is trans. And that means being treated more like an object and less like an actual person with a personality. It's, when it works, it's great for sex hookups, but it's a lot more difficult for anything deeper or more meaningful when it comes to relationship expectations. Not impossible, far from it, but just harder to find those kinds of people who, if you want something deeper, also want that something deeper. Option 3. Dating new people who don't already know the big secret. Now, introductions are always tricky. But the thing is, I always introduce myself as, like in the manner of, hi, I'm Joy, nice to meet you. Not, hi, I'm Joy, by the way, I have a cock, just so you're aware. Like, that doesn't happen. I wouldn't do that to somebody. And no one, no cis person is going to say, like, no cis girl is going to say, oh, hi, yeah, I have a vag, just so you're aware. Like, it would be weird and ridiculous to think that. But this does mean, of course, that there's certain crucial information about oneself that is not revealed. So you end up in this getting to know you phase, which can be pretty great. And, you can learn about if you are compatible by going on dates or, like, PG fun kind of dates, like dinner, movies, bowling, whatever. But at some point, the niggling thing in the back of your mind, and I do keep calling it a secret for more hyperbole than anything else, it does need to be addressed. Because to me, I'm always thinking, well, do they know? Do they not know? Like, have they figured it out yet? So inevitably, you will have to have that conversation of, telling all. Like, this pretty big, important piece of information about yourself. Now, I would recommend that you leave it no more than 3 dates as a sort of general rule. It does, of course, it matters on the individuals, and if somebody is like post everything transition, maybe you could stretch it out a bit longer, but I would really advise just telling, you have to tell them eventually, because not doing so is withholding very crucial information about yourself, and not only is that dishonest to them, it's also being dishonest about yourself. Like, you should have the freedom to feel proud of who you are. And yes, that does include being trans. So, you can't hide that forever. The conversation on having, talking about that is not so easy to broach, but it absolutely has to happen. And then, of course, you've got to wait for the outcome. And you've got to deal with all the nerves and the build-up and please. Yeah. So in the best case scenario, the person that you've told, they says, okay, great. So what? I don't care. I like you for you. Which has happened to me and was pretty great. And even when it does take like a day or two for that response to happen, it's still, it's still fine. Like, somebody who, it's hard to say you haven't blindsided with this particular information because they may not have picked up on any of the cues or clues. So, for that person, giving them a bit of time to sort of process it, but then them eventually sort of coming around to the idea of, they still like you for you. That's fine, because they might need a little bit of time to get used to it. You as the trans person who has revealed this part of yourself to them, you've lived as a trans person for quite some time. You've already figured that out about yourself. You've already discovered that secret about yourself. So you don't have to then, have time, but they might need that time. The worst case scenario is that they say something pretty horrible that they get violent, they try to attack, they try to kill, or in some way harm the trans person who has just told them that particular, personal information about them. And fortunately, that hasn't happened to me. But it has happened to other people within the trans community, and that's really scary because we always have to be somewhat guarded about our own safety. So having some way to get out of the situation is necessary, really, just in case things turn that sour. And this is a harsh reality, but it does happen. There are, of course, the in the middle of the road reactions, which is just the other person reacts by saying, "Oh, wide-eyed. Okay. I don't do that. Bye." Like, hello, rude. Now, unfortunately, that has happened to me, but it's better to know and then not get too invested. Have that conversation sooner rather than later so that it doesn't escalate into a bigger thing. Now, I could also open up the online war that is, "Are genital preferences transphobic?" Which, look, I wouldn't call anyone who has that kind of a reaction a bigot. And I would never force anybody to date me or to do anything with me that they don't want to do. Having that reaction towards a trans person is not a great thing to do to someone. And I'm feeling, left well, that was shit. Should I have said something sooner? Or, did I handle this right? Is this my fault? Is it them? The whole internal monologue argument thing that goes on there. And this all happens over something that, you really can't control. You're either trans or you're not. Then, of course, there is dealing with other people's assumptions. So, every trans person has to, at some point, in some way, struggle against cis-normativity, which is the expectation within society that everyone is cis. Everyone, all men have penises, all women have vaginas, and nobody is anything in between, and no intersex people exist, and no trans people exist, and no non-binary people exist. That is cis-normativity, which, it's just an expectation of that. And it does affect people's thinking and biases. Assuming that a trans woman is a woman is correct. It always seems to come with a but. Yes, you're a woman, but you're a transgender woman. Or assuming a trans woman is a man is both incorrect and hurtful. But there are some people who end up willing to date someone who thinks that way about them out of desperation of not being lonely. And look, the same thing is the inverse for trans men. I'm just, using trans women as an example here. For me personally, as a non-binary person, no one assumes my gender fucking correctly. So I'm in this kind of no-win situation. Back to the whole genital preferences thing, just for a second. The cis-normative expectations can come from heterosexual and homosexual people. And I would invite you to check my videos about comments from pornography videos for evidence of transphobia towards trans men by gay cis men, and Look no further than TERF lesbians for transphobia towards trans women. And I don't just mean genital preferences there, but outright vitriolic disavowing of other people's identities. Of course, I can't talk about this topic without mentioning the position of being a cis person dating a trans person, which also carries risks. Scenario. Someone who is protective of their toxic masculinity is accused of being gay for dating a trans woman. So he beats her up and murders her. These accusations are rooted in both transphobia and homophobia. This scenario, again, happens all the time. And who is statistically most at risk? Trans women of color. So it would seem that the best thing is secret option 4. Being a trans person who dates other trans people. And this carries 2 major problems that I've seen so far. First of all, it's hard to find someone else who understands and is compatible with you. The likelihood of finding someone else is minute. Again, possible. Of course, all things are possible. But because trans people are so marginalized already, it's just difficult to find other people that you like that are trans, let alone would feel like dating. And then, of course, you've got to be single at the same time. And, like, this is why I've never dated another trans person. Because, circumstance more than anything else. The other problem that I have seen, which I've only seen online from videos from other people on YouTube, some trans people exclude the possibility of dating other trans people because of reasons like, oh, well, it would just be dysphoria squared, without even considering the possibility that that could be better for, your understanding of your partner. Like, I'm not saying these people are suffering from internalized transphobia, I'm just saying it looks like that. But what's worse is that it's a harmful and exclusionary message to put out there on YouTube, whether you feel that or not. And it does come across as kind of selfish as well. Like, for example, somebody who says that that's what they desire sexually, is the feeling of a cis dick. Now, I love cis dick, okay? I love the feel of cis dick. Does that mean that I would then exclude dating a trans guy just because he doesn't have a cis dick? No. Like, I'm open to the possibility of finding a trans guy who I find attractive, and dating him and doing sex stuff with him, and like I said, it's not happened so far more because of circumstance than anything else. Finding other trans people is really difficult to do, which is kind of why I really love trans pride so much, because it's like, this is the most trans people have seen in a long time. And it's hard to find people within this community, that are also compatible. So, anyway, that's all I have to say about this topic. I know I've sort of categorized other trans people who exclude dating trans people as being, you know, having flimsy excuses. And that's because that's what I think, okay? I think that is what's happening. I think those are flimsy excuses. If someone can convince me otherwise, then sure, go ahead, have a go. Until then, I will not be convinced. Because it's just the same kind of thing as a cis person excluding dating a trans person. Going back to that whole feeling of, you know, when I was rejected for that thing of, you know, this thing that I can't control feels kind of shitty. It's a shitty thing to do. That's what it is. Anyway, bye for now. I leave you with those thoughts. Non-binary is valid, goddammit!